So I'm in trouble. I've got a D&D session today, and I forgot to prep. Okay, so maybe I procrastinated, but it's because I know what I want to happen in this session, because the party is in the middle of a bounty quest to defeat a gnoll infestation in a village. Now, I need to build the village terrain and fast, so here's a story time about the whole game while I try and desperately get this battle map together. Let's go. We're playing in a fantasy setting inspired by the Roman invasion of Gaul, modern-day France. The core gameplay loop is survival and monster hunting, while all this political upheaval is happening in the background. Essentially, the party is taking care of things that people would normally take care of if they weren't diverting all of their soldiers and resources towards war. The players head towards a village called Verica that was looking for help dealing with a gnoll infestation. When they reach the outskirts of the village, they find a little girl getting water, but the eagle-eyed Aarakocra monk, Kiris, played by my wife, spies this, and she also sees a group of gnolls bearing down on her. Kiris warns the party about this, and they quickly save the girl and defeat the gnolls. The girl leads them back to her village, and the former Centurion Dragonborn character in the party remembers that this village, from campaigns past, was of low wealth filled with desperate and hungry people. The image they come to see when they pass the tree line is the opposite. The village is opulent, massive stores of grain, large fields of growing crops, excess stores of food being traded to the Empire for coin. This complete transformation must have occurred recently, within the last 5 or so years, since the Dragonborn was last here. The party first brings the girl back to her grandmother, who thanks the party, allowing them to camp in her yard if they need to. She also tells them that the village has been growing rapidly, deforesting the nearby trees to make room for farmland, and not giving the local tree spirit her due. This tree spirit is an Askafroa named Tutana. The idea of an Askafroa, or an ash tree wife, is taken from German and Scandinavian folklore. And I came upon that when I picked up a role-playing book called Vasen at a game store I was at, when I went to a HeroScape tournament with Tabletop Bro. Vasen is a really interesting Nordic horror game that I haven't played yet, but essentially you're investigators searching for spirits called Vasen. In order to defeat them, you have to find their weaknesses and really investigate. This concept, both of the Askafroa and the need to investigate to succeed, really drove my design for this quest. Essentially, the gnolls were positioned as the whole quest, but they were just the hook and the symptom of the greater problem in the area. After the party dealt with the local gnoll problem, they were invited to a feast in their honor hosted by the village elder. During this feast, both food and drink were consumed to excess, and during a toast directed towards the newly arrived heroes, a gnoll burst from the stomach of the man giving the toast. In the seconds following, more gnolls burst from several other partygoers. This leads to the main fight that I'm building all of this for, an encounter I'm calling the Night of Blood and Hunger. Well, that or Gnolapalooza, whichever sticks. Alright, I think these are good enough. I'm gonna pack them up and head over to run the game. Okay, I'm back. And here's how the encounter went, which basically took the whole session. I had 4 gnolls out at the start of the encounter, and an encounter event happening on Initiative 20. The first event was a villager knocking over a brazier while running from a gnoll, which sets fire to one of the houses. At Initiative 20, it would raise by 1, to a maximum of 4, where the building would get destroyed. The fire also got more dangerous as the level increased. The fire could also be spread to nearby buildings on a roll of 4 or higher during that checkup. Then I would roll a d6 for each villager on the map. On a 6, I'd replace that villager with a gnoll and stop rolling. Basically, a gnoll would burst forth from that villager. Both of these, the fire and the gnoll check, were ongoing effects. Anytime a gnoll killed a villager or a house burned down, it raised the devastation level of the village by 1. If the devastation level hit 6, the village would be considered devastated and would be unusable as a safe haven on the map. This is an example of me testing out clocks from Blades in the Dark in Dungeons & Dragons. If you want more info on that, you should check out my video on Blades in the Dark here. But essentially, that clock ticking of the devastation level would have an effect later in the world map. And because I use a safe haven system where players can only take long rests in places considered a safe haven, losing one like this village would be an incredibly bad thing to happen. I had a few other events planned that also occurred at Initiative 20 during that encounter event checkup, like a gnoll trying to break into the house of the girl they saved from the gnolls during the last session. This led to an absolutely devastating moment in the game. As the gnoll broke into the girl's house, the Dragonborn ex-Centurion player ran out to try and save the girl from certain death. He successfully got the gnoll's attention, but the gnoll was able to get the better of him, using his attack to down him and then activating his rampage ability, which caused him to bite him, immediately making him fail 2 death saves. And then it was his turn, and he failed the next death save. This was the first death we've encountered in this campaign. So I asked the player, "Is your character's story over?" He said he didn't think so, that there was more to explore with this character. Now, I don't give resurrections freely, there is a cost, but this gave me an idea. Now, this character was a warlock who had a pact with this world's equivalent of the Raven Queen, called the Morrigan. Now, since she has plans for him, she offered him a devil's bargain. Since the Morrigan's domain is dying, not death itself, merely the transition between life and death, she has sway in exactly this kind of scenario. She told him, in the liminal space between life and death, she could turn back time slightly to draw the gnoll's attention to the girl he was trying to save instead. After some agonizing thought, he went for the deal. Brutal, absolutely brutal, but a fantastic role-playing opportunity. I'm so excited to see how this choice affects his character going forward. We're playing again soon, and that is so exciting because I want to see what happens next. The players saved the village during this session, but if they want to truly save the village, they'll have to confront the Askafroa. But in order to succeed, they'll need some serious cards in their favor, which is where I'm planning on deploying 3 competing clocks at the same time to help guide their investigation. Whichever one finishes first will help decide the fate of the village of Verica. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks so much to my patrons for helping support the content I'm bringing to you. If you want to see more from me, make sure you subscribe. See you next time.